Hi everyone, welcome back to the Art of Gracious Living. Today we've got an unboxing of a pair of Meermin boots. Meermin are a family-run Spanish brand, and these are a pair of boots that we're going to take a look at. They come in a nice box. First of all, let me show you they are shell Cordovan. They're in the burgundy color, which is the classic Cordovan, and they have the HOK last. They come in a nice pair of shoe bags, which is great, always appreciated. I tend to wear my boots too much to really use them a lot, but if you put a pair of boots away for the winter, it's a nice way to keep them nice and unmarked. And here they are. Shell Cordovan. Their burgundy is the equivalent of Horween's number 8, shell Cordovan. They're just beautiful. Talk about a mirror shine. They're a 9-eyelet boot, 5 round eyelets and then 4 speed hooks, which makes them a little taller than most similarly styled boots. They're sort of a service boot style. They're a little bit higher, a little bit more ankle support, a little more formal look, I think. And they're a formal boot for sure, but I use them as an everyday boot because I don't really go to formal events anymore. I did go to lunch with a friend at their club, and I wore these to that, and I was glad to have them because it was a way to really dress up your wardrobe fast. A lot of people look at the shoes first, and so if your shoes are on point, it'll really carry an outfit. Even if the outfit is not 100%, good shoes will carry it over the finish line. The soles are leather, but these have had a pair of sole protectors put on, which is just a very thin rubber layer right on top of the leather sole, which I highly recommend for any leather shoes. It makes them last 3 times longer, and they're a little bit more slip resistant. They're a little quieter. They're just a nice way to take care of your shoes. I've actually had these a little while and have had they have a little bit of wear on them. You could see all the nails that were used, a ton of them. I see like 15 brass nails right here, which attach the heel to the rest of the structure of the heel stack. And the Meermin are really, really nicely constructed. They are all leather heel stack, all leather midsole. Again, as I've said, all leather outsole with a rubber sole protector put on. And just very, very beautifully crafted, handcrafted pair of boots. These are actually from Meermin's Linnea Maestro. This is Meermin's top tier hand welted line. They have a tighter waist shaping and higher finish standards. And that is literally hand welted, which means hand sewn on. They come with these really nice wooden shoe trees. Again, Meermin, Majorca, Goodyear welted, 360, leather welt, and again, hand welted. I mean, look at the regularity of those stitches. It's really pretty amazing. They are dead on. I would say the quality of the construction equals that of the finest Asian makers, the Japanese boot makers, the Indonesian boot makers. This is truly a handcrafted shoe. Anything from that line is just superbly put together. This was a limited edition, extremely rare Meermin product. They only produced a very small number of them in a pre-order batch. The way Meermin works is they do have some off the shelf, but a lot of their more interesting offerings are sent out to their mailing list, and you subscribe to or sign up to purchase one of them, and then they're made basically to order for you in the size with any special features that you want. This was a batch that was done in 2020, and it was one of the smallest and most sought after of Cordovan runs that Meermin has ever released. Meermin uses a couple different shell Cordovan leathers. What made this one so special is that this was Shinki Hikaku shell leather made in Japan, one of the finest shell Cordovan manufacturers in the world. Of course, I love Horween, and we'll look at a little comparison between the two in a minute. Most of my experience until fairly recently was with Horween shell Cordovan, but this Shinki Hikaku just really, really impresses me. I find it to be equal to, I wouldn't say it's better than Horween. That would be uselessly picking nits, but it's certainly equal to Horween. Slightly different approach to it. It is thinner. Let's take a quick look. I want to compare this. This is a Horween NATO leather strap. This was also made in Spain, by the way, by a wholesaler that I'm acquainted with. And these are sold, they were sold at Brooks Brothers, they were sold at Allen Edmonds. I think it might be easiest if you can look at them like this. The Shinki is slightly thinner, but it's not much. It's really less than I thought it would be. Maybe a quarter of a millimeter difference in thickness. And I have found that the Shinki is a little bit more finished, a little bit more polished on the inside than the Horween. The Horween is all business on the inside. That is the well, I can't say flesh side because shell has no flesh side. Let me take a second to tell you a little bit about shell Cordovan. Shell is a part of a horse, and it is a subcutaneous layer of membrane that rests below the flesh. So it's below the skin, and it's attached to the skin. So there is some ambiguity as to where the shell begins and where the skin ends. But it is something that is only found on horses, and it is a leather-like material after it's been processed. The way they do it is they shave off the leather, that is, the flesh top grain, which can be used for horse butt. When you see horse butt, that doesn't mean it's shell. It's just that top layer that's been removed from the shell. And then this is tanned, and there's a polishing process that goes along with it too. But what's really remarkable about shell is there is no suede, because the suede part that would have existed is cut off. The suede part is not part of the shell, it's part of the flesh. It's part of the outer layer of skin. So shell doesn't have it at all. And so what you're left with is something with a hard finish, a hard polished finish on both sides, which is completely unique with any leather-related product. There is no suede layer. Both sides feel like top grain. Very, very smooth top grain. So what this practically means for performance is that shell is extremely water resistant. It is the only leather that can be said to be almost waterproof. All horse hide is to some extent water resistant. When you see these pictures of people in World War II, Germans wearing black leather trench coats, the reason they're wearing black leather trench coats is those are horsehide, and they're waterproof, and that was the closest thing that they had for a raincoat. So those are basically just horse leather raincoats that people wear. Shell takes it even a step further. And Shell, the reason I want to introduce you to this Shell Cordovan NATO strap is because Shell, unlike every other leather, when you're manufacturing a watch band, there's no need to line it because there is no suede. If you ever see a watch band that's not made of Shell, it needs to be lined so that there's top grain on both the top and the part that rests against your flesh, because otherwise, if it was an unlined regular leather watch strap, it would have a suede interior. Well, that may sound cool and comfortable to have suede against your skin. Suede sucks up sweat and will stink within a matter of weeks. Shell, on the other hand, is almost completely non-absorbent of sweat and skin oils. And as you can see, this has been worn quite a bit, and the underside looks completely untouched. There's certainly no staining and no absorption of sweat. So if you ever get offered a watch strap that has not been lined and that has any suede showing, even on the edges have to be either painted or folded in when they're stitched, because you can't have any edge and you can't have any suede on a watch strap. If you ever see one, it was made by an amateur who doesn't know what they're doing. So I've put a pair of waxed flat laces on these, which I really like. I like the looks of the flat waxed. And I could not recommend these more highly. I like Meermin. I like the brand. And I've been very impressed with their product. And these have been worn quite a bit, but as you can see, they don't lose their shine. They really are a self-shining shoe. All you have to do is brush them, give them a nice vigorous brushing, and they will come right back. The beauty, again, what I said about Shell is absolutely relevant to the performance of boots or shoes that are made out of Shell. Shell, as I said, is by far the most water-resistant leather product that exists. But when it comes to boots, they're the most waterproof leather boots that you can possibly buy. There's no doubt about it. Shell Cordovan is the way to go if you want boots that are going to hold up to mud and water. They are almost waterproof. And the trouble is they're extremely expensive. Shell is, again, there's maybe only this much shell by this much, like 2.5 feet by 12 inches on each horse. So this is a real premium product. It takes a long time to properly finish it. Shinki takes 9 months. Horween takes 6 months. So this is not something you're going to be able to offer at a reasonable price, although Meermin is able to, because of their business model and because they're made in Spain, they are able to offer them at a very, very reasonable price. Actually, let's take a look here. Yeah, designed in Majorca, handcrafted in Shanghai. So they are taking advantage of Asian manufacturing costs and also the skill of some of the finest leather workers in Asia. That is no way a sign of poor quality. I consider that to be a sign of good quality. But that's an example of how they're able to offer these at such a reasonable price. But anyway, the story behind Shell Cordovan boots is that Blackjack Pershing, General Blackjack Pershing, the World War I commander of the American Expeditionary Forces to France, his aide-de-camp was none other than General George Patton. And Patton was very much a protege of Blackjack Pershing. And apparently when Patton was assigned to Pershing's staff, he so admired Pershing's riding boots. And remember, Pershing, they were part of the cavalry. And the cavalry morphed into the tank corps. And of course, Patton was the first officer in command of tanks in the American Army in World War I, ever. And of course, he took that expertise that he developed during World War I to great success in World War II. But anyway, Pershing wore a beautiful pair of handmade English shell Cordovan riding boots. And as soon as Patton saw them, he immediately ordered another pair just like it for him. Now, in this photo, you'll see Pershing giving an award to one of his soldiers. And you can compare the boots that they're wearing. Pershing's wearing his beautiful, handcrafted, British, bespoke riding boots, and the enlisted man that's receiving the commendation is wearing his World War I 1917 model combat boots with, instead of the tall leather to protect his pants, he's wearing puttees. What's also interesting about this photo is one of the soldiers immediately behind the two seems to be wearing a pair of L.L. Bean hunting shoes, which were issued to World War I troops in limited numbers and very effective in the trenches. So, Meermin, shell Cordovan, they fit good. They're very comfortable. They are certainly different than the last that's used on Alden Indy boots. They are narrower, although I don't find them to be excessively narrow, and a little more almond shape, a little more dressy looking, but still can be pulled off with a pair of jeans, which I often do. So, highly recommend Meermin, and I highly recommend any product made out of shell Cordovan that you can find. So, thank you very much. If you like this content, please subscribe, like, and leave comments about what you'd like to see in the future and how you liked our existing content. We drop every Sunday morning. Thanks very much. Take care.